Hey guys, Sid from Sid's Trains here, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the perfect train. What is a perfect train? I love steam engines a lot, and they're my favorite type of engine in railroading. So I'm going to be talking about what I think is the perfect steam train. Some are big, and others are rather small. So what is this perfect engine? It's not too big and it's not too small. It's just right. It's the 284 Berkshire, and some of them are pretty unique. Stay tuned for a ton of great train action here on Sid's Trains. So why the 284 Berkshire type as the perfect engine? Well, that took me a little while to think about. It's such a interesting question to think, what is the perfect engine? Obviously, there's engines that are very popular. The Union Pacific Big Boy is one that comes to mind. It is a very popular steam engine, but it doesn't appeal to everybody. It appeals to a very big crowd, but there's also people who just really don't like it. And the same applies to the Berkshire, but there's something special about the Berk in that it was used by a ton of different railroads, and because of that, it can appeal to a wider crowd than just the Big Boy. The Big Boy was just a UP engine. It was a Union Pacific engine. UP fans like it, and then just fans of railroading like it. But the Berks were used by tons of different railroads, and there wasn't just one type of Berk. There were Baldwin Berks, there were Lima Berks, and tons of other different kinds. And they were used on both coasts, both the East and West Coast, and even in the Midwest. So that allows for more people to be interested in the Berkshire. And because of that, Lionel has been making it since the 40s. MTH started producing their first Berkshires in the late 90s. And there's also brass companies who produced Berkshires. And the Berkshire is just kind of a symbol in railroading. It's just a very general steam engine. They pulled freight, they pulled passenger, and then there's the number one Berk of all to a lot of people, the Polar Express, the fantasy locomotive that was a Berkshire. And of course, in real life, the 1225 is like the real live counterpart of the Polar Express. So this engine just means so much to so many different people. And that's why I think in this hobby, the Berkshire is that perfect engine. Obviously, like I said, there's engines that are more interesting to some people or is their favorite engine. But the Berkshire to me is like a perfect engine. It can appeal to a wide variety of people, and it comes from a wide variety of railroads, not just one. And like I said, Lionel's been producing the Berkshire since the 40s. Their first Berkshire was the 726 Berkshire, and they would produce several more throughout the post-war era. Lionel would go on to produce more Berkshires like this in the Fun Dimensions MPC era with the Chessie Steam Special and the Union Pacific Famous American Railroad set, and then there were several other Berkshires as well produced around this time, and these were again post-war Berkshires but with very colorful paint schemes. And then of course Lionel would go on to produce scale Berkshires in the modern era and semi-scale Berkshires like the Polar Express. But I think the Berkshire that really means the most to this hobby, or at least on the Lionel side, is the scale Berkshire. Lionel's scale, Legacy, and TMCC Berkshires are really nice models. They have a fantastic sounds, the models look great, and especially the early Legacy versions really mean a lot to people. I have two versions here, the 765 and the 2696 C&O Berkshire. Both these are very interesting models, and they are very nice models at that. They sound great, they run great, and they smoke really well. And that's just the great thing about Lionel Burks, they're a solid model. You can always depend on them. They don't have any crazy features. Some of the newer ones have whistle steam, and when Lionel reproduces them, they'll probably have the whole 5 whistle combination with the sounds. But Lionel Burks are just really nice models, and that's why I think they've become kind of a staple in the hobby and something that people really enjoy and really want. And speaking of wanting and buying models, I purchased this 765 and then a semi-scale Berkshire, that being a Rail King Chicago Northwestern Berkshire, which is an MTH model. I purchased both this Rail King one and the Legacy 765 from my great friends at TRAINZ. That's TRAINZ with a Z. TRAINZ has tons of great models for you. They have anything from engines to rolling stock to layout supplies to parts. They have just about everything to keep your empire going, or if you're brand new, they have tons of amazing products that you can purchase to build your empire and create an amazing setup. If you'd like to save $10 off your next order of $50 or more with TRAINZ, make sure to use my promo code SIDSTRAINZ at checkout. And then to support the channel, use my affiliates link, www.trainz.com/SidsTrains. Your support is greatly appreciated. MTH has also produced some very unique Berkshires.
Pretty unique.
They didn't just produce the generic nickel plate or pear marquette Berkshire like the 765 or 1225. They also produced some other versions that are kind of one-off in a way. The first being the A2 Berkshire, which I did a video on a little while ago. It's a New York Central Berkshire that is very interesting looking. It's got this green paint job. It looks like a cobble together of a ton of different engines, and it just sets itself apart from all the other Berkshires. Very interesting model. And the same can be said for another Berkshire that they've produced, the Chesapeake and Ohio's Kanawha. The Kanawha was the C&O's version of the Berkshire, and it's a very mean looking engine. It's got this low mounted headlight, and it just looks awesome going down the rails with a ton of passenger cars or freight cars. Speaking of unique and interesting models, a model of the Berkshire that I do not have but appeals to the more West Coast railroader is the A1 type Berkshire. It was a early Lima Berkshire that was used by some of the railroads on the West Coast, like the Southern Pacific and the Santa Fe. Lionel actually cataloged these recently, and they should be arriving within the next year or so. Very cool looking engines, not really my thing, but it just shows that there's more to this engine than just the East Coast railroads. It also can be applied to the West Coast. And again, that is what makes this engine perfect. It can be appealing to a wider audience, and because of that, that's why there's so many Berkshires on the market. Companies have been producing these for years now, and hopefully they'll keep producing them because there's always more variants, more paint schemes, and just more versions that people want. And of course, the Polar Express is an amazing movie and an amazing engine. And hopefully here soon, Lionel will reproduce the scale Polar Express so that people can get their fix of that. Because Lionel produced it a few years back, but not a lot of people bought it. So it's now a very desirable item, and the prices are skyrocketing on them right now. So hopefully here soon, Lionel will take note of that and reproduce the Berkshire so they can produce a Polar Express and give the market what they want. But the Berkshire overall is a very cool engine. I have several models of it, semi-scale, scale, and from different manufacturers. All amazing engines, and now we're going to wrap up this video by running them all around the layout. that was a lot of trains. It was a lot of fun running all these different Berkshires around, and I really do think the Berk is a perfect engine. But what do you think? Is the Berk a perfect engine? Let me know down in the comments. Maybe you have a different stance on this topic. I'd love to hear what you have to think on this. Thank you all for watching this video, and if you haven't already, make sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications. I'm Sid, and I'll see you next time, guys.